Or as it's known in the West, Tetris Attack was developed by Intelligent Systems and first released on October 27, 1995 in Japan for their Super Famicom, with a release for the North American and European Super NES the following year. The game spawned many sequels and spin-offs, most of which used the name Puzzle League instead of Tetris Attack. This was most likely changed because the co-founder of the Tetris company, Hank Rogers, didn't like that Nintendo was using the Tetris name for games that have no relation to the Tetris series. As you might have already guessed, Untitled Chapter is of course a puzzle game, the point being to clear as many of the tiles or panels as you can from your screen by creating lines of 3 or more of the same color in order to prevent the ever-rising rows of tiles from reaching the top of the screen, resulting in a failure. It's a rather simple premise in theory, but I can tell you this is a very complex and complicated game, so much so that over 23 hours of playtime later, I still don't fully grasp the more difficult maneuvers. There's quite a bit to go over here, so let's just get right into it. If you've ever played Tetris Attack for the SNES, the first thing you'll probably notice when booting up Untitled Chapter is probably going to be the difference in characters and setting. Tetris Attack takes place in the world of Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, and features many familiar Nintendo characters such as Yoshi and Shy Guy. However, the original game had a fantasy setting centering around cute fairy characters, the main of which being Lip the Flower Fairy. The single-player game features a variety of different modes, including Endless, Score Attack, Stage Clear, Puzzle, and Versus. Endless, as the name implies, is a never-ending mode where you simply try to see how long you can survive. The rate at which the tiles appear on your screen is ever increasing, making this a rather difficult task, but definitely a very fun high-score-based mode. This is probably a good time to mention another major mechanic of Untitled Chapter, the time stop feature. When you clear tiles in specific ways, the movement of the screen freezes, giving you precious time to clear more panels and hopefully gain more freeze time. This is an invaluable tool when playing the game's more challenging and fast-paced modes, but can be rather hard to pull off. The easiest way is just to line up 4 tiles of the same color, but this doesn't really get you much time. The more challenging maneuvers like combo clears and streaks do gain you quite a good chunk, but as you'd expect, much more difficult. Moving on to Score Attack, this is just your simple everyday timed high score based mode, very similar to Endless just with the added pressure of a time limit. I should mention that before you start Endless or Score Attack, you do get the option to choose your starting speed and difficulty, allowing you to adjust to your personal skill level. This makes it possible for anyone with any skill level to enjoy these modes at their own pace, a really welcome feature in my opinion. For me, right around 45 speed and normal difficulty seems to be the sweet spot. Next up we have Stage Clear. This one changes up the formula a little bit, making you have to clear tiles until there are none left above the clear line. As the name suggests, the goal of this mode is to clear all the stages for each fairy. There are a total of 6 fairies, each with 5 of their own stages. As you might expect, the speed and difficulty of the stages get higher as you move along. Once you clear every stage, you are faced with one final challenge, Thanatos the Demon King. He only has one stage, but it works in a slightly different manner. Thanatos has a health bar, and he takes damage anytime you make a clear that freezes time, the difficulty of the clear determining how much damage he takes. This was a very challenging boss fight, taking upwards of 6 hours just to clear this one stage. I was having fun the whole time, so the difficulty didn't really bother me, and the sense of achievement when I finally cleared it was really something else. Definitely one of the best modes in the game. Speaking of great modes, we have the Puzzle mode. In this mode we again see a number of stages we have to clear, but in a much different way. This time we have to clear the tiles given to us within the number of moves shown in the top right corner of the screen. The difficulty again ranges from exceedingly easy to darn near impossible, the later stages having racked my brain for hours and hours just to solve a simple 3-move puzzle. I did manage to clear every stage, but once you do this you unlock even more difficult stages that I really wasn't up for trying to clear. However, if you really like a good puzzle, I would definitely recommend giving them a shot, because there clearly is a lot of love and care put into these puzzles by the developers. I can't even imagine the amount of work it would take to design even a simple puzzle, let alone the ones that take hours to solve. I had a ton of fun with this mode as well, but the difficulty spike in the later levels was just a bit too much for me personally. Last but not least, we have the Versus mode. If you're like me, you're probably thinking this is just a simple versus CPU single player mode, but it turns out this is in essence Panel Pone's version of a story mode. You can imagine my surprise when I first started up this mode and was greeted by a story exposition by the main character Lip. As it turns out, the fairy world is under attack from monsters. They're using magic to make it constantly rain and have cursed the other fairies, making them no longer get along. A pretty straightforward plot, but it's cute and I really enjoyed it. Long story short, we have to defeat the other fairies in order to bring them back to their senses, and then move on to taking out the monsters attacking the fairy world. In this mode, you win when your opponent's tiles reach the top of the screen, and you can speed up this process by sending them garbage blocks that impede their progress. This is done by performing moves that would freeze time similar to the Thanatos fight. There are also metal blocks unique to this mode that, when aligned, send a metal garbage block to your opponent. This block, unlike other garbage, isn't cleared when you clear an adjacent garbage block and can only be cleared by doing a normal clear next to the block itself. This makes it a very important tool in winning battles. There are 4 difficulties to versus mode: easy, normal, hard, and 1 extra hard mode unlocked after beating hard mode. The last fight of the story changes based on the difficulty. The final boss of the easy mode is a dragon, the normal mode is again Thanatos the Demon King, and the hard mode is the goddess Cordelia. The hard mode fights are pretty challenging, and beating it definitely took me a few hours. When you do finally manage to defeat Cordelia, she transforms into Lip's mother, the Fairy Queen. Turns out that she was the one who created the monsters and was just testing Lip to see if she has what it takes to lead the world as Fairy Queen herself. Having defeated her mother, she has of course earned her blessing, but depending on whether or not you use continues, Lip will decline or accept this offer, giving you something else to work towards if you did need to use one. Personally, I haven't cleared the super hard mode difficulty yet because it is ridiculously hard, but from what I can gather, the endings do seem to be rather similar. That just about does it for single player modes, but what about 2-player? Well, we have just 2 modes here, Score Attack and Versus, but I think you can have a lot of fun with just these 2 modes and a good friend. Score Attack is pretty much the same other than the fact that you can compete against a second player, and Versus this time around is just what you'd expect from a 2-player Versus mode. Not really much to talk about here because they really are just multiplayer versions of the single player modes, but that by no means means they are not fun. In fact, playing Panel with a buddy might just be some of the most fun you can have with this game. If you have someone to play with, I really recommend giving it a shot. If you're on a Switch, I believe you can play with a friend online through the 2-player option on the sidebar of the game select screen, but I can't test this out, so take that with a grain of salt. So far, we've only talked about gameplay, which is fair because that really is the bulk of the game, but I'd like to talk just a little bit about visuals and sound design. In terms of visuals, there really isn't anything groundbreaking here like Donkey Kong Country's 3D pre-rendered graphics, but that's not to say the game looks bad. In fact, I quite like the way Panel looks, especially the overall colorful design of the menu settings and characters. It's just a fun game to look at in my opinion. I also really like the cute designs for the fairies. They're all nice in their own way, but my favorite probably is Foiler the Fire Fairy because she looks like she's got a little fire to her. Pun definitely intended. As for the music, it's great. There really are some good bangers here, like the title music or the menu music. Pretty much anything, really. Now, as far as I could tell, there aren't too many songs, but they make up for quantity with quality. Just an overall excellent soundtrack that makes you want to keep matching up tiles for hours and hours. There is one big negative here in my opinion, and that is the use of a password system over a traditional save game feature. It can be really annoying to copy a password from a piece of paper or a screenshot into the game every time you want to play, sometimes even putting me off from playing the game altogether. That was until I realized that on the Switch version, you can use the Create Suspend Point feature in order to save your progress for later. This made the game much more approachable, and I definitely would recommend using it if you plan on playing Panel on the Switch. However, that only applies to the Switch version, so the original game does require passwords. Many other games for the SNES use passwords, so it is a little understandable that they would use them here, especially considering the nature of the game, but nonetheless, still very annoying. But overall, I really enjoyed my time with Panel and plan to continue playing it casually going forward. Thanks so much for sticking with me through the whole review. It really means a lot, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm not sure what game we'll be looking at next, but it will probably be another SNES game, so if you're interested in seeing more content like this, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Ack out.